Good morning. Welcome to Morning Coffee for the Soul. I am going to add this to my timeline as well. Anyway, good morning, and we are going to talk today about self-acceptance. Every Sunday at 8:30 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, we're here in Kardec Radio, bringing you guys a topic about anything. It could be anything that has to do with our physical, psychological, emotional health. And of course, we link whatever it is, the subject, with the psychology as well as the spiritual part of it. And of course, we'll bring spiritism to help us tie in the subject and understand what is the topic. I am not any kind of guru. I don't know everything. I'm just here bringing a topic of about between 20 and 30 minutes. And so we can use this topic during our week to reflect. So everyone's input is very welcome. If you ever want to be brought to camera, it's also welcome. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments, any suggestions, links. And then, of course, I will answer if I know it. If I don't, I'll do some research and try to answer the following week. So today we're talking about self-acceptance. One of the toughest things that we can really say is that we have accepted ourselves. That is because we have this tendency of criticism, not only others, but especially ourselves. I like to say that someone yesterday asked me, actually, she was having very low self-esteem, and she came to me at a party and she says, what are the basic things I can do, or where do I start to really make my self-esteem a little healthier? And of course, I gave her 3 suggestions that came up to mind. One of them was for her to really enhance whatever it is she doesn't like in herself and start with the physical aspect. Now, of course, we always talk about starting everything from the inside to the outside, but sometimes it's so tough to start from the inside that I say, why not start from the outside to the inside? Sometimes we are allowed to kind of break the rules because we have to change techniques. We have to change things to see what works for us. So in her case, I said, start prettying yourself up in a way that you would like. As simple as put on a lipstick, put on a dress that you haven't worn in a while. And even if you're sad, if you're even depressed, sometimes I have people that are really going through a depressed phase. And I always say, just put on a lipstick. That's all. I mean, it's something that usually takes the least amount of effort. And I know how hard it is. Sometimes we don't want to brush our hair. We don't want to shower when you have such a depressed state in your life. But start out with something that will pretty up, something that will brighten you up a little bit. So that was, of course, it can be seen as a silly advice, but it works. Secondly, I did tell her, start showing up. Start showing up because you are needful. You are useful to the world. And our self-esteem is so tied up to how useful we're being to the world. That's why Chico Xavier and you see Mother Teresa, they weren't considered, according to these standards of beauty in magazines, they weren't the prettiest people around, yet they felt so accomplished. Their self-esteem was not really, I'm willing to risk saying that they had a pretty good self-esteem. And self-esteem is not really tied to how good you look or how much money you have or how famous you are. Actually, those things sometimes are the opposite. We have to do it so we can feel a little better. And the more we do it, it's the least that we feel. But they did good towards others. They kind of put themselves a little on the side, yet they took care of themselves. They were always dressed clean. They were always, you see Chico, he was always presenting himself nicely. So, but the third thing is, when I said show up, show up to different events, show up to different things, because in a way you will be useful when you show up to different things. And then thirdly, I said, don't underestimate the power of volunteer work, of doing something that is not for yourself, doing something that is, it could be for animals, it could be for nursing homes, it could be for whatever it is. But the minute that you put yourself out there to do any type of volunteer work, your self-esteem will thank you, because there is nothing healthier for one's self-esteem than to feel useful and feel at the end of the day that you have contributed and made a difference that day. It could be picking up garbage on the streets. It could be anything that you will lay down at night and say, wow, because of me, the world is a tad better. And sometimes this tad is not so tad. It's a lot more than you thought. And that will bring our self-esteem up. Why am I talking about self-esteem? Because, again, in the Spirit's book, one of the biggest point that Kardec always tries to get across is the power of doing good towards others, the power of being charitable. And that is why, if any question that we touch here in Morning Coffee for the Soul, there is an element of charity that will help whatever issue we're having. So I always reserve some time of my time, of my life, to charitable work. And that's not just at the Spiritist Center, but it's anywhere, everywhere, anywhere that life puts me. There is a task there that I could be helping in some way. So, of course, I'm not going to just be looking for things to do, but there is a purpose. If I'm there to perhaps pacify an argument that's about to start, that does wonders for my self-esteem. Why is self-esteem tied to self-acceptance? Because it's much easier to accept who we are as spirits that are progressing and getting better through each time life when we also have a healthier sense of self-esteem. Now, when Kardec asked on the Spirit's book, how or what are the methods to really get better, to progress, to really reach that point where everybody talks about, and we're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but he says, know thyself. And that's on question 919. And it says, how can we get better? What can I do, to just feel good and to progress and to grow? And he says, well, we know Socrates already wrote this down way back in the past. Know thyself. And knowing yourself, I'll also add, accept yourself. Because knowing yourself is knowing how far you've become from where you began. So we're not evil creatures. I doubt anybody here watching would consider themselves evil. And that's a huge progress from a primitive spirit, from someone that knew nothing. So we have accomplished quite a bit already in our lifetime, in our many lives. Then knowing yourself also constitutes where you are. What are you doing now with your life? And then, can I be better? What are the things I have to improve on? If I go to sleep, have I done anything better today than 5 years ago, than 2 days ago, than this morning? So knowing yourselves is also predicting how you would behave in a certain situation. Because we can say, if that was me, I would have done this. But do we really? A lot of things we watch on TV, we could say, oh, if I was the leader of this country, I would have done this way. But do we really know the whole system to know if we would be a puppet? Again, it's interesting for us to know that there are so many elements that could corrupt ourselves. And once we fight those elements, then we get to know ourselves better. We can say with authority, I would never do this, or I would definitely do this. And that's very hard to say, because we are not at the place of whatever person we're kind of judging their behavior. I could never say that to my mother, or I would never break up with this person if I was their wife or husband, or I would never. That's very tough. And that's why knowing yourselves, as Kardec recommends, is such a very crucial time, a crucial thing in our lives. Now, I'm going to bring up a little bit of Maslow, Abraham Maslow, fantastic psychologist. And he actually, unlike Freud, he really concentrated on what's good in people. And he liked to study usually the 1% that thrives. That and Freud really concentrated on what's wrong with people and their illnesses and that's fine because we need both. But Maslow, I think it was in 1943, he really concentrated on what motivates people to do things. What are the people, they had to be going through a little scale of needs, really, that they accomplish, and then they seek something else. So self-acceptance has a lot to do with what Maslow, in my opinion, brought up to us. First, before in his pyramid, and he designed kind of a pyramid of needs, and at the same thing of needs, it would be motivation, something that would bring you up to the next level. So Maslow suggested the first thing would be our physiological needs. Of course, all humans, we are created spirits that are simple and ignorant, as we have learned with Spiritism. So when we are created, we have basic needs, physiological needs. So we need the air that we breathe. So we know that different worlds are populated by different spirits, different beings. That's why we're looking for humans in Mars, but it's incompatible, our bodies in Mars. There's definitely life in Mars, but a different type of life that we can't really understand. Kardec once said about fish, if we had never seen a fish, we would never believe that there's life under the water. Because again, it's incompatible with humans. So it needs a different system to live under the water. And that's, how Jesus says, there are many, many, many homes in my Father's universe. So we know that there's not one place that is uninhabited. So again, we have our needs as humans. We need our air, we need food, we need sleep, we need rest. We know that, and sometimes we're not even quite satisfying these basic needs. How many of us will work to the bone and not have enough rest, and we're not even obeying our very basic physiological needs? So how can we accept us as human beings that are just children of God if we're not even filling up our basic needs? And think about how many people in the planet that are very scarce food and basic things. So it's very hard to move on to the next if you don't even have the very basic. So let's take care of ourselves and accept and be gracious about having these things. We don't have to feel bad for having them. We don't have to be, to feel bad because we have something that people in a different continent don't have. It's the excess, it's the waste that we should feel bad about. So when I accept and I say, well, I was born here in this country, in this place, then I'm going to accept that. I'm not going to be also angry at myself because I have and somebody else don't have what I have. So let's accept that as well. You have done something to deserve what you have, and be happy with it and share the excesses, or share even part of what you have, not the excesses. So accept yourself as living wherever you live, as having either abundant food in your fridge or not having abundant food in your fridge, and understand that there's a reason for that and that God is just and good. So once we do that, we accept the very basic needs that we have. We start accepting ourselves as either deserving or not of those things. And not because I'm evil or good or I've done something terrible or not, but I could be a part of a plan, a mission, part of something bigger. And it's impossible to have no input on something bigger if we're going to start comparing people with some have not, and we're born with and born with not. And that's why Spiritism is so important and brings up such amazing answers as to that question of basic physiological needs. The second part, of course, would come into the form of safety. After we've satisfied that, we need to feel safe. We need to have job stability. We need to have some kind of a home that we can go into and out of. So we have this need. And again, the self-acceptance is understanding my limits, is understanding that if I start to compare myself with those who have this amazing job that makes all this money, that we start to feel less accepting of our condition. Maybe my intelligence is only capable of bringing me some sorts of work. Maybe my lack of the language that I have in that country or whatever it is. So once we start accepting that, hey, I have a home or I have a place that I can rest my head where Jesus didn't have, in his talks and his 3 years of that we know of, his active talks. He never had a place. He was always traveling from time to time, from place to place. So again, once I know, listen, I have an apartment, I have a bed, I have something, or I don't, or maybe I don't. Maybe I've lost everything I have and I have to work all again for that I lost. Then I start to accept situations that I cannot change, yet doing something for sure of those that I can change. So once I look around and I can look at my living room, I'm in my living room right now, and if I say, I accept that this is what I have. So I am going to make the best of this living room for my life and not compare my neighbor's house. And you see why the whole thing about jealousy and the whole thing about comparing is so harmful to us. Because again, self-acceptance also falls into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once I accept what I have and know that this is enough, I'm going to be a bright person to the extent of my intelligence. I'm going to be accepted of my financial conditions, yet I'm always going to strive to better myself. You can always go up the step, but being perfectly content and happy with each step as you go and as you climb it. After the safety, we need to belong. We need, again, that third phase of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy. We need to belong. We need to feel, to have friends, to have a family, to have someone we can count on, to have our tribe, as in the past. So we need to start also showing up for life. Acceptance is part of it's work. It's not that someone wakes up and says, I love myself, I accept myself. It's constant work. But if we don't show up to life, then it's very hard to encounter different tribes, as I'm saying, but encounter different groups that I'm going to be part of. Sometimes we see someone who's extremely good looking, but they are lonely. And then they say, well, I don't want to be friends with people that are less good looking than me. And then they can never meet their own, their own bar that they put themselves in. And we have to pay attention, because sometimes maybe I have a physical imperfection, whatever you want to call it, but maybe I see myself as, I have this problem or this or that. Yet we don't want to put ourselves with people that are like us. We always want people that are more handsome, better, have more money, whatever it is. But a lot of self-acceptance is kind of like going and saying, how about those that are just like me? How about those that are even less fortunate than me? I'm sure they would love to be part of your life, but we want those who are always better, more fortunate, if that word makes sense, which to me it doesn't. There is no such thing as a more fortunate. It's just, and spiritism is a whole different thing there. But we rarely seek those that need us. So we have to belong somewhere. We have to show up. It's much easier to accept ourselves if we don't always strive to be with people that are also better. I like to be with better people in a moral sense. It doesn't matter as far as, looks, money, what they have, how many lectures they give, whatever. That to me is the least of my concerns. But when I have the opportunity to be near someone that I'm going to learn something from, what a blessing. And that learning from means anywhere. And that's when you start feeling good about yourself. When you start putting yourselves in positions that, hey, I'm going to learn with the elderly at the nursing home. I'm going today to learn with the homeless on the streets. I'm going to sit down and talk to them. Today, you see, you start belonging to the world. Because in reality, we're all immigrants in this earth. We are here from different places, right? And we have to make our own tribes. We have to make, eventually, it'll be one big one. But for now, you have to start belonging. That is a sense of accepting yourself as part of that. So don't be so restrictive on who your tribe is. Don't be so restrictive. People that I have friends in all varied ways, and I don't mean friends because we have a few in this world, but I'm saying at least you can be part of different things. Art classes, this kind of class, anything. Then we have our esteem needs. We need to feel that, people look at us and they look up in a way to us, or we can teach something, or we need to be somewhat respected or feel accomplished. We need to look at ourselves and say, hey, way to go, I did this. Or if we have, since children, we need that. When we bring in something, a project from school, and our parents usually validate how we did. You did great. That is so wonderful. And when we start to accept ourselves, we have to really say, atta girl, atta boy. We have to really look at ourselves and say, I've done a lot. I have to feel accomplished. Look how much I've done in my life. We have to stop looking at all our failures and look at all our wins, how many things we've accomplished. Look, I was able to form a relationship with someone. I was able to have a child. Or, I got this job that many people applied for, and I was the one that got it. I have such a wonderful parent who loves me so much. I must have done something right. So we have to do things not to show off, but of course to get that feeling of worth. Everybody needs to feel worthy. And we are all worthy. Because when God's looking at us, he's saying, you're my child. I created you only for good things. And that alone is reason for us to be accepting ourselves as children of God. He could have created anybody else, he or she, whatever. God could have created anybody else, but he created you. You're the one looking at this camera. You were created. He could have created anybody else. But if he created you and you exist, for that alone, you should at least, out of a sense of respect, start accepting yourself. Because if he did, who are you not to? Get it? You have to accept that you're a children of God. He chose you to exist. So after the esteem is the self-actualization. That's what Maslow said, that once we feel respect for ourselves especially, that goes a little beyond. It's that full potential that you could reach. It's when you say, you know what, I don't want to just be good at something. I don't need to just meet a need. I want to master whatever my needs are. I want to do things not because I'm doing things. I want to really master all the things that I do. That doesn't mean that you will like what you do, but that you will master what you do. You see the difference? Self-actualization means I am happy with what I do. It doesn't mean that it has to be perfect, but it is the most perfect that I can do. And then you feel completely accepted of everything around your life. You look at your life and you say, wow, I'm doing all right. It's not all right, but I'm doing the best that I know what to do. And that's when you get to that point of just reaching the moral laws. You're reaching a little more on a spiritual level, until Maslow later added on the self-transcendence. When you transcend, you start to actually put yourself out and putting an entire world, the entire cosmos in. And once you transcend, everything else has been so accepted as they are, that you start to give back. Those are the people that are just, they have this different light about them. Doesn't matter what job they are, because we wait for these people, these transcendent people, to live somewhere on the top of the Himalayas, and we expect them to be some kind of a guru with a huge crowd following them, but not. That is not true. These people could be working right next to you, but they have transcended all the material, earthly type of things that hold us back. They have accepted life in a whole different way. They have accepted life as, I'm going to accept me as a spirit, no longer as a body full of limitations and intelligence lacking perhaps a lot, but I have accepted myself again as someone, something so much bigger than all this, that all I can do is spill this brightness, this light onto others. And these people have a different smirk on their face. They have a different ease about them. And again, to me, I look at Chico, I look at Kardec, who's done everything he could, and he was at peace. He knew he did his mission to the best that he could. And he did make mistakes like all of us. Chico made mistakes like all of us. Yet, they transcended. They knew that there was something so much bigger than that. So, again, my friends, I'm going to end this. And I like one of Abraham Maslow's, this, again, amazing psychologist, and look him up and look at all the things that he has to say. And again, go back to the Spirit's book as well and kind of put those two together and say to yourselves, does this make sense or it doesn't? And to me, it makes perfect sense. And again, he says, what a man could be, he must be. That is Abraham Maslow's quote. That's something he said. What a man could be, he should be. He must be. And again, so if whatever it is that you could be in your life, you should. And you should strive for. And until you get there, accept what you are. Because you are such a gift. You are so much more than you think you are. And someone in this world needs your talents if you only show up. Thank you, friends. I hope you enjoyed this little morning coffee for the soul. I'm going to do my own Facebook now in Portuguese. Every time that I finish here, I do the same one in Portuguese. Everyone is welcome. And please keep following Kardec Radio. Remember, next week, we're going to have the youth retreat. So make sure you check out here on Kardec Radio. And I'm just going to say hello to Chris Anastasia, who's here. Elisete Crespi's here. Rosanna Lashley. We have Renata Forte Cavalcanti. We have Teresa Castro. She put something very beautiful here on the AA, the Alcoholic Anonymous. Acceptance prayer is the answer to all the problems today. When I was disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by mistake. This is from AA Big Book, page 417. It's right here. Teresa, thank you so much, because the acceptance prayer, if we really, truly take it and really understand it, there is nothing that is out of place. And I have to accept the things that I absolutely can't change, but absolutely change the things that I can and no longer work for me. The thing is, we have to understand the difference and not insist on something that I can't change, and also not give up on something that I can. Raquel is here. Thank you for talking about the subject. Raquel had suggested the topic. I hope I did a little bit of justice on it with a little time, Raquel. Thank you. And Tanya Stewart, our lovely Tanya, is here saying good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to move on to my own personal one. Thank you for watching Morning Coffee for the Soul, and leave any kind of topic suggestions. Thank you again.